Hey friends! Today we're talking about an event that could become a turning point in the relationship between Russia, the Baltic states, and more broadly NATO. For the first time ever, Estonia has detained a tanker that, according to preliminary information, belongs to Russia's so-called shadow fleet. This happened in the Gulf of Muuga, near Aegna Island, and the detention was carried out by Estonia's defense forces. What does this mean? Why is it important? And what might it lead to in the future? Let's break it all down. You're watching Geopolitical. Let's dive into the details. First, some background. What is Russia's shadow fleet? After the war in Ukraine began and Western sanctions followed, Moscow had to build a parallel logistics system for exporting oil. Dozens, if not hundreds, of old tankers were purchased and registered under offshore flags: Liberia, Panama, the Marshall Islands. Anywhere but Russia. This fleet is unofficial, uninsured by major companies, often operating without proper inspections and crewed by hired personnel who don't always follow safety standards. The main goal: bypass sanctions. These tankers move Russian oil, especially to Asia, often sold at discounted prices. And now, for the first time, one of these vessels has been stopped and detained. Not just anywhere, but near the shores of a NATO country. That's not just a technical inspection, it's a message. The tanker dropped anchor in the Gulf of Muuga. Estonia's defense forces apparently had prior information about the vessel's status and made the decision to detain it. At a press conference, Estonian Navy Commander Commodore Ivo Värk stated that the goal was to verify the documents and legal status of the ship. Sounds official. But behind that statement there might be much more going on. This is the first recorded detention of a shadow fleet vessel in the Baltic Sea. The Baltic is essentially an enclosed European sea with tightly regulated shipping. This move shows that the Baltic states, and by extension NATO, are beginning to more actively monitor maritime borders and suspicious activities. It also sends a clear message: sanctions evasion will not be ignored. Estonia is acting not only in its own interest, but as a representative of the broader Western alliance. Let's get into some legal ground. According to international maritime law, any ship entering a nation's territorial waters is subject to that country's jurisdiction, even if it stays outside. In the exclusive economic zone, it can still be detained under certain conditions. If this tanker was indeed involved in bypassing sanctions or transporting Russian oil in violation of price caps or without insurance, that's a violation of international norms. This creates a precedent. From now on, any vessel suspected of similar activities could be stopped and inspected. For Russia, this is a troubling sign. Estonia may be a small country, but it's part of NATO, which means any escalation or pressure on Estonia could trigger a wider response. This is especially significant given the ongoing military exercises in the Baltic region. And let's not forget, if similar detentions follow, the shadow around the Russian fleet may start to dissipate. Tankers will think twice before getting close to European waters. That means more complex logistics, less profitable exports. On the flip side, Russia will likely try to spin this into propaganda. Expect statements about provocations, violations of free navigation, and interference in sovereign trade. But the international community is increasingly focused on actions, not words. So, what happens now? 1. More detentions could follow. Estonia and Latvia might increase their maritime surveillance. 2. NATO could use this case to justify expanded naval patrols. 3. Russia may reroute its tankers, possibly pulling out of the Baltic altogether. 4. Most importantly, this incident could shape a new policy approach toward maritime oil trade, especially under sanctions. So, friends, the detention of a tanker near Estonia's coast is far from a routine check. It's a strategic and political move, a challenge to the shadow network still trying to operate under the radar. It's a message not only to Moscow, but to the entire world. Playing in the shadows is becoming riskier. If these actions continue, we may be witnessing the beginning of a new phase in global sanctions enforcement and control over energy logistics. Let us know in the comments. What do you think about this incident? Should NATO take a more active role in cases like this. Subscribe, like the video, and stay tuned for more stories that matter. See you next time.